So Neutral is the first carbon neutral food company in the US, focusing right now on dairy because that's one of the biggest places to have impact.
So thanks so much for joining us today on Packaging a Box. My name is Vali Matos, and we're joined by Jill Visit of Neutral. Jill, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Amazing. Thanks so much for joining us. You've got a lot happening. You've got a new redesign that happened. But before we get into like the redesign, the why, the when, the how, can you give us just a quick rundown on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I am executive creative director at Neutral, but I've been creative director at a lot of different companies for a long time, longer than I should admit. I started out in the natural foods industry as creative director at Whole Foods. So I was at Whole Foods for about 14 years, I think. And so was global creative director there. So I rolled out a lot of their programs or oversaw the rollout of things like their meat standards, seafood standards, all of that they have lots and lots of standards. So I was there for a lot of that, which will be relevant to this current job. Then I took a break from Whole Foods and I invented a product. So I took a couple of years off and released my product and then got back into graphic design professionally. And so, I have worked at Verb, which is an online professional development company, and then was working for a travel company, an educational travel company called World Strides for a while during COVID. So that was fun. And
So
then
no travel.
Yeah, during no travel. So. But we did our best. And then I've been at Neutral now for about 2 years. So Neutral is the first carbon neutral food company in the US, focusing right now on dairy because that's one of the biggest places to have impact. 97% of consumers in America have some kind of dairy product in their fridge. And there's a lot of opportunity in dairy agriculture to reduce carbon emissions. So that is kind of what we do. So we have 2 SKUs of carbon neutral milk, and we have half and half, and then some food service products as well. And we also have a team in-house of very smart carbon scientists and farm experts that go out onto farms and work with farmers to create emissions reducing farm projects. So that's all kinds of stuff, and I'm still learning all about it. But they work to create like win-win partnerships with farmers, so things that will benefit the farms financially and also benefit the reduction of climate change.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot, right? So from Whole Foods to launching your own brand, what's like the one thing that you took away from Whole Foods that you still use in your everyday design?
Oh gosh, so it was so foundational for me. I think, I think the thing that's most interesting to me now is in rolling out a lot of those standards. Whole Foods is a great place to shop, but you kind of need a lot of, we used to joke that you kind of need like a manual to go in there if you really want to get to the bottom of all of their standards, and most people don't. And so you've got to make those things really accessible, and they are not always, like, they're very complicated, and there's a lot of smart people that develop these programs. And I think what's interesting to me now at Neutral is, carbon neutral foods, I think, is the next organic, in my opinion. Organic's been on the scene for like 30 years, and people still don't really know what it means. No one could tell you what USDA organic standards are. So I think, just knowing that and how to make that accessible, especially in a crowded store in 3 seconds or less, is something really valuable that I took with me from Whole Foods.
When you're talking about standards, like, let's get into that a little bit. What do you mean? Right? Like, I'm thinking of it as design standards, but no, this is not design standards. This is more product.
Yeah, no, this is more like sourcing standards. And so, there are design standards that go along with that. So that's my job. But it's more of, how to communicate that. So we had, for example, Whole Foods meat standards, probably the most complicated. We rolled out the 5-step meat program, which actually had 6 steps. That's problem number one. But it's, very detailed. There's no teeth clipping, no beak trimming, no, stuff like that, you really didn't even know was a thing. And that's great. And there's about 1% of people that really want to know those details. And you need those details for the program to be legitimate. But at the same time, when somebody's trying to pick out hamburger meat, it's not really the time to dig into that, with a screaming toddler sitting in the cart. So you really have to come up with a way to distill that down, very, very complex set of standards, into like, hey, this is great. Our meat is better. That kind of thing.
Yeah, no teeth clipping, no beak clipping.
Right.
We'll leave that.
Beak trimming out. But yeah, there is more to it than
definitely foundational work, things that are going to shape the rest of your design career. And is that what led you into this organic path, or was this something just personal that you were already going, and that's why you were at Whole Foods to begin with?
Well, a friend of mine from Whole Foods, we kind of stick together. So she had brought me to Neutral when it started. She's here right at the beginning. So I think the company's been around for about 3 years. And so I've been here for 2. But yeah, I was really excited to get back into food because that's just, a real passion of mine. And it was obviously very comfortable. And so this just felt like an extension of that work, just to go back into the natural food space with something different, which I think is also really important to me personally. Just to contribute, to use my powers for good, I guess you could say, and contribute to making a difference in the climate change problem in a way that felt meaningful. I think the farm work at Neutral really is just so inspirational, and I'm learning so much, and I just think if we can pull this off, it will make a significant difference. And so I love that.
And then after Whole Foods, you mentioned you launched a product.
Yes.
So a lot of designers want to create a product, right? Like we secretly want to be that entrepreneur, but we love the journey that we take on with our clients, and then we move on to the next one, right? Like we never take that big risk.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a huge risk. What was that product, and what did it solve?
Yeah. So the product was called the Salad Sling. So it was a food product. I just invented it one day. I was using, I didn't invent this, but I was using dish towels to dry my salad greens, and I would just, spin it around my kitchen, and there would be water flying everywhere. And so, I created a device that's like a 2-sided towel with a waterproof membrane in the center. And it has handles, and you gather up the handles and put your wet greens inside and spin it around. And so centrifugal force pulls the moisture out of the greens, and it takes up a lot less room than the salad spinner. So I have a salad spinner, and I hate using it because it's this massive thing and it's on the top shelf. And so this is just a towel, and then you throw it in the washing machine when you're done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just, I thought, well, surely this thing already exists, and it didn't. And so I got a patent, and I'm a graphic designer. Like I don't know how to source textiles, but I figured it out. So through this, I think it took me about a year to figure out how to manufacture it, where it would come from, how to sell it, how to, packaging. That was one thing I didn't know how to do. But the rest I did not know how to do. So I learned how to file a trademark and a lot of things. But it's still around for sale on Amazon.
That's awesome. So you still own this product. You're still Would you recommend that designers go out and create their own product and go through this whole process? Like, did you learn things in that process that you apply to your daily design process?
I did. I learned a lot about the business end of
Mm-hmm.
design. And I learned how it feels to put your own money on the line. And I, as a designer, get to the luxury of kind of working with a team of people, account planners and people who are doing the strategy and the data and analyzing, our consumer market and our demographics. And when you're on your own, you can't afford those people. So I had to be a better all around marketer, and so you learn from experience whether or not Facebook is a great platform for certain kinds of messages, even
Yeah.
though you know that and you've been making Facebook ads for years and years. When you're there and it's your money and your product and you're focused on it like every single day, I think you get a whole new level of understanding. So I think in that way, yes. I mean, and um, I think also just the feeling, I did this when I was 40. And so I just think the feeling that you could do something else,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you get to be good at something and you've been doing it for 20 years. And then all of a sudden you're bad at something is really nice. It increases your mental flexibility, I think, and forces you to kind of put your brain back into learning mode, which is nice.
No, that's great. I think it's important to launch a product. It allows you to get both sides of it, right? You're
Yeah.
always outputting design. You're always on this end of it. You never kind of deal with the struggles of the client, the costing, the time limits, like learning production. Like there's so many things that happen on that end that
Yeah.
you don't experience. So experiencing both ends all of a sudden makes you, I don't know, a little bit more empathetic towards that client than when you're working with them.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it's just the scale of it. So it's like,
IDP Direct, pioneering factory direct sustainable luxury, packaging, logistics, and design. They're not just manufacturers, they're your partners in eco excellence. IDPdirect.com. If finding your spec data is a wild goose chase around your office, you've got a data problem. SpecRite is the only cloud-based management specification solution that every brand needs. Because if you don't spec right, you'll spec wrong.
working at Whole Foods, there's like 100
Right.
people on the marketing team, and so your job becomes so specialized. And when you like the smaller the company, obviously, like the more jobs you have to have at that company. So just going down to be a team of one was really eye opening. So like how spoiled I was. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to learn to place my own media and like, just kind of the stuff that other people used to do for me.
Right.
So yeah, you get a whole new understanding.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, all right. So then today you're with Neutral.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that it's the first carbon neutral brand in the US.
First carbon neutral food company in the US.
Food company in the
Yeah.
US. What does carbon neutral mean?
Carbon neutral means that there are no net new emissions from the production of the product. So we do what's called a life cycle analysis. And there's lots of like very smart scientific people on our team, and we work with outside experts, and they basically say, okay, from farm to fridge, like what's the carbon footprint of this product? What happened? How much does it take to ship it, to refrigerate it at the store, to create the packaging for it? Absolutely everything from the cows to the carton that it's in. And we say, okay, here's that number, and we will either reduce that amount of carbon through our farm projects, or whatever is left over. We do still have to rely on some offsets for that because at the moment we're still gearing up with the farm projects. But the hope is that as we increase the number of farm projects going on, it will more than compensate for the production of the products and will be carbon negative.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so what are these farm projects? I don't understand.
So we go out onto different farms, and every farm is
Mhm.
different. So we go and evaluate what the opportunities are there. So our farm team might go out and do feed supplements. So we do a lot of these feed supplement projects. So by giving cows, for example, this thing called agalin, it's like an essential oil that you put into their food.
Mhm.
It reduces the amount of burps and farts, quite literally.
Yeah.
They burp and fart less and create less methane. I think it's I'm going to quote you something wrong here, but I think it's like 8% reduction.
Sure.
And by doing that, the farmers also see increases in their fertility and their milk production and stuff like that. So that's what I say. Like, farmers love it because it's saving them money, and we love
Mhm.
it because the cows are producing less methane. There are all kinds of projects that we do. Uh, Forage, different kinds of forage. We'll add that to pasture, different kinds of grasses and hays. Sometimes different kinds of hay that takes less water than alfalfa, for example,
Sure.
um, or different kinds of blends of different forage. So forage is what the cows eat on pasture. Um, Different kinds of blends that produce less methane or create more biodiversity or all of the above. We also do manure separators to kind of contain some of the methane that's produced by cow poop,
Right.
and on and on and on. So I'm sort of just like just know enough to be dangerous there, but we have a whole team of carbon scientists that go out and evaluate these things. Planting trees and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, most people, when you drive by a dairy farm, right? We all know the smell, right? We're all familiar with that dairy
Yeah.
farm
Yeah.
cow
There's
fart smell.
definitely
Yeah.
there's definitely poop, and so there's different ways to manage that, and so we just try to help them with funding and expertise, to use something that makes more sense for their farm, and
Okay.
they really appreciate it.
Then you're about to launch, or you've just launched your new packaging.
We just launched it. It's hitting stores here and there, but it should be everywhere in December.
Okay.
Hmm.
And the brand is neutral.
Hmm.
And can we take a look and see what the previous packaging looked like?
Yes, certainly. So here's the previous package,
Okay.
in a distinctive uh, yellow carton, which is cool. And so this is our whole milk SKU. This milk fights climate change, and it is carbon neutral certified. So this is what we're working with.
Okay. And then did you work on this design, or is this the design that was there when you showed up?
This I inherited. Yes. So
Okay.
this one's not mine.
Perfect. Do you know what the brief was here? How do we get to this orange?
I don't know a lot. Like I said, this was kind of before my time. I know they
Yeah.
wanted something that would stand out in the category. No one's using orange. I think they wanted to really make the climate change message obviously front and center. I believe this is an even like more tame version of what they originally wanted to do that was not allowed by some of the retailers. So we had to kind of dial it back. But yeah, I think, just wanted to do something that was, I mean, the milk is very different. And I think they wanted something that reflected how different it really was.
Okay.
And
And then what's that seal on the, is that just say carbon neutral?
yeah, that's
Mhm.
carbon neutral certified. So this is from SCS Global, who does our certification. It's a third party carbon neutral
Okay.
certification.
Can we give that a spin? What do we have on the other panels?
Okay, yeah. So here's the old Nutrifax panel.
Yeah.
Here we are on the back. Every product has a carbon footprint, even this milk. And so this kind of just goes into like why you should care
Yeah.
about carbon neutral milk. And then we've got quite a bit of copy over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now we've seen what you had.
Uh-huh.
Now, before we get to the reveal, what was the brief here to go from that to this?
Right. So the yellow was a blessing and a curse. Obviously, there's a bunch of legibility issues. We have white type on
Yeah.
yellow here. No one can read this. A lot of people thought it was orange juice.
Yep.
Even our retailers, we would find ourselves shelved next to the orange juice and or next to the alt milks. So like the oat
Mm,
milk, soy milk, whatever, because it did look very different from our competition, but sometimes a little bit too different.
sure.
So we had a lot of confusion, like customer confusion. So we needed more cues that would make it clear that this is dairy milk. So that was like item number one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have our logo here at the bottom that gets covered up by the shelf quite a bit. So people can't even
Oh,
see the
wow.
name of the product. So we know we needed to solve that problem. We had colors that were not necessarily category norms, so
Yeah.
we've got orange and then, a kind of a teal blue. Whole milk's always red and, 2% milk's always blue. So, just things like that would help eliminate confusion as well. And we just needed to make it more accessible. So we've got all this copy on the side kind of talking about what carbon neutral means in maybe a little bit too much detail and a little too
Yeah.
much science. So we know that climate change is what, or being carbon neutral is what sets us apart, but it's not necessarily how you choose milk.
A milk,
So we
right?
needed kind of a different communication hierarchy as well. So, when you buy milk, is it whole milk or 2%? Is it organic? Is it pasture raised? Is it, these are the things that we know are actually, higher up in the decision tree than is it carbon neutral. For the moment at least. And so we
Yeah.
know we needed to kind of bring those things to the top and then talk about carbon neutral in kind of a bonus secondary way.
Okay. So then if you're launching a product, have a product, category norms are something that you have to balance,
Yeah.
right? Like the red, the blue for the milks, something that you have to embrace. Otherwise, you face potential confusion for consumer and for retailers. How far can you push away from those norms, and when do you embrace those?
I think it's a delicate balance because you don't want to just blend into the set, but I think it's just knowing kind of which, how to pick your battles, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, so it's like, can you do a design that's cool and stands out and still makes the whole milk red? Probably like
Mm-hmm.
that's a small compromise, and so I think for us, it was like, okay, well, we've got this big yellow carton, for better or worse, so I think it was important to us to keep that because that was kind of what made us different, but we knew we had to, you know, work more. Like I think we went too far in the first design of
Mm-hmm.
just trying to stand out. And so we knew we had to bring in some of these other cues that would help us blend in. So I think, I guess my advice if you're doing a product is to just know the category and know kind of the decision tree for your consumer. And so it's different for granola bars than it is for milk, and milk is a commodity. So I think, if I was doing a granola bar, I would want a picture of the granola bar on the front so that
Yeah.
people can see it's yummy and things like that, But we knew from milk, just from a lot of research, that, kind of in order what people were looking for when they were choosing that particular product. And so we made sure that the new design could incorporate that while still, setting us apart on the shelf.
Okay. And then, so we go from what you had, the issues, confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have a new brief, new direction.
Mm-hmm.
When do you start communicating to your consumer that there's going to be a change?
We did it. I mean, we're still a small brand,
Mm-hmm.
so we we didn't do a big massive rollout. We did pretty I mean, all summer we've been working on this. We started rolling this out, I think probably October, communicating to our partners that this was coming. And then, you know, uh, we provided resources for them at store shelf, neckers to go on
Mm-hmm.
the little milk carton and signage for shelf. We are communicating on our website starting, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then we have a few ads and some social media stuff, but not like a full blast campaign, because I think we worked hard to make sure that it wasn't going to be like, we didn't change the name, we didn't change the logo. So we're hoping that there's enough of a through line that people will still recognize it on the shelf.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you involve your retailers in the design process?
We did a bit. We once we had a design, kind of sent it out to some of our the retailers that we have a good relationship with. We sent it out to them for their input, and it was very positive. I think they had been asking us for a design change for a while, and so I think they felt like where we landed solved a lot of the issues that they were seeing on shelf, and so that was great to hear and was helpful moving forward.
Okay. Awesome. So I'd love to see what this new pack looks like.
Okay.
If we can do the big reveal here.
Okay. Drum roll. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here it is.
As a consumer, I'm looking at this. I'm comparing with the previous one. You're right. The logo is the same. Is the logo black?
It is blue. Yeah.
Okay. So we've brought that color over.
Before and after. Right.
Okay. And is it the same blue that was on the bottom of the old one, right?
Yep.
Perfect. So we've got that connection. We've got the white for milk, and we've got the red in the top, right? Like instantly, this fits milk. We've got whole milk, big, bold red. We've got a cow, so we don't put this next to the almond milk and anything else. Right. And then, of course, organic, and then carbon neutral from grass to glass. And we're not hitting anybody with what carbon neutrality is up front. Like it's really about the milk.
Yes. Yeah. So we knew, okay, so here we go. Like, first of all, is it dairy milk? That was problem number one. So yeah, you're right. We've got a big cow on it. We felt like that was, we just really had to hammer it. And then we've got the drip across the top, just to reinforce that it is white dairy milk. And then logos moved up top so you can see who's making it. And then the name of the product is much more prominent, because we had that kind of like down here under the logo before. And that would also get covered up on shelf sometime. And then we've also got it more prominent on the top as well. Pasture raised on family farms. So we know that animal welfare is actually something that's really important to people, right behind, organic. And then you see carbon neutral from grass to glass is actually like very, tertiary, maybe even below that. But here's our little certification, and we're kind of just like, bonus, it's carbon neutral. We kept the yellow, but made it a little bit less dominant. But that way, there wouldn't be confusion of like, where's my big yellow carton for the customers that are loyal to us.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a challenge, right? When brands want to shift and change packaging, it's like there's certain things you want to change, but certain things that you have to keep to stay anchored to that consumer.
Yeah, we kind of debated that a lot. It was like, what is that thing? And just, I think because the yellow was so dominant before, we were like, is it the mountains? Like, no, nobody knows what these mountains are. Like it was really minimal. So really the yellow was kind of the way to pull that through.
Perfect. And what do we have on the other panels?
Okay, so this is where we go into kind of more of the carbon neutral stuff. So
do you mention farts on here?
Did I get that in there? I fought long and hard to get farts on there, and I think I got outvoted. But we do talk about.
I'm just picturing, kids at the table going, "I want the milk with the farts."
I try to talk about cow farts as much as possible, because I do think that is the thing. I mean, funny enough, like I'm not joking, because that's the thing people do know about. Like, oh, cow farts is methane. That's like that's making global warming, and that is true. It's mostly the burps though. But
Burps
burps
aren't
are
as
not nearly
funny.
as funny as farts. And so I'm like, okay, I know but they're like, but it's not the farts, it's the burps. So the people on my team care
Yeah.
deeply about the difference. And I'm like, the average customer, this is their only way in. Like, this is the only thing they know about what cows contribute to global warming. So
Yeah.
let's use that nugget and go from there.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. I could just imagine the kids on the playground going, I drink the milk with the cow farts.
but the cow,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, like what kid is talking about milk on the playground?
right. So yeah, so this panel talks about animal welfare and kind
Mm-hmm.
of where we source from, small family farms, how the cows have a great, wonderful life. And then on the back, we go into what does carbon neutral mean? But we try to really, A, it's legible now,
Mm-hmm.
and B, we tried to really make this accessible for people.
Sure.
And so, yeah, just talking about, the work that we do on farms, basically.
Okay. Is there a QR code to take you
There
anywhere? Oh,
is. Yep.
perfect.
So QR codes takes you to a landing page that kind of spells this out in a little bit greater detail.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking like, we just had Chobani on and they did some QR codes, which then actually opened up into like this AR experience, which was like a game and you collected points as you kind of walk through
Oh,
this
okay.
experience, right? So what from this pack, like what's the one component that you'd say has like the most personal connection for you?
I think I'm proud of the balance that we struck between old and new. And so, we really struggled with how to do that. And I feel like, we've got enough in here that's new. I think it also, I mean, we have, my job since I've been in here is to kind of define what our brand ethos will be and kind of, what's our tone of voice, what's our personality. And so I think that comes through a little bit more now. I mean, even just, I think the cow face is really like probably the best part of it because they're so cute. And so I just think that it's a little bit more like we always want to be friendly,
Mm-hmm.
approachable, optimistic. I think this was a little more like militant and like not that we don't believe this. Like
Right.
we're very like sincere and in our mission, and our mission is big and hard, and we're devoted to that. But I think this is just a little bit more digestible for the average person, and it just feels a little bit more friendly and optimistic because that's the thing we really want to be about. Is like it's not too late, it's not doom and gloom. We're not trying to make you feel guilty. Like those are all the things that we really wanted to get rid of completely. It's more a message of hopefulness and like you can make this one small change and just like with your coffee in the morning make a difference.
Yeah.
And that by purchasing this milk you're connected directly to these you directly fund these projects on farms that are making a difference not only for farmers but for the planet. And so I don't know, it's just like it doesn't need to be a bummer over your breakfast cereal. We just wanted it to be kind of something that would maybe cheer you up, you know?
Yeah. No, that's great. And then I guess from a design perspective, going through this entire redesign, was there anything in here that you learned about timelines? Were people expecting this to be done in a month? Or
I did learn a lot about timelines. It did take a lot longer. The production was longer than what I had been used to. And I mean, at Whole Foods, I'm used to printing on paper and it's more straightforward. You send the files to print, they to come back. But,
yeah,
through this, we had to work with a lot of the certifiers. We had to work with, the USDA rules and a lot of that I wasn't familiar with for the category of milk. So I learned a lot about font size and, what's required on the package, but also the production does just take a long time and it goes through a lot more hands. And yeah, you kind of have less direct control over it.
sure. And so what about font size? Like,
Well,
what do we not know about font size on milk?
everything has to be big. Just little things like on the 2%. Well, this is not the national SKU. Okay, there's different SKUs. So California has their own SKU because they have different rules than the rest of the nation. So that's item number one. But like saying 2% milk, you can't just say 2% milk. You have to say that it's reduced fat milk underneath and like quantify what that means. All of this stuff down at the bottom has to be like half of the height of the product name, and that has to be the largest thing. And like I can't even remember all of it, but yeah, it's and then yeah.
So California has its own. So in every kind of packaging, California has its own regulations. Most brands just make packaging for California and then just use it for everybody else. But with milk, it's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different. And so, and we needed, they're a little bit different, they're packaged in different places and stuff like that. So it made sense for us to do two different ones.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. I never realized that this impact, that California's crazy legislations impacted milk as well.
Yeah.
Do you guys do a chocolate milk?
Not yet, but we're thinking about it.
Nice. Yeah. I saw that one that you held up, the California one. I thought I saw like a brown on there, but
nope, not yet. That would probably launch as like a food service, like a half pint first. And so we've got a product developer on staff who's got some cool ideas about that. But so far, it's not in the works.
Cool. Yeah, I'm in Arizona. Arizona, we've got it's like Denizen Farms or something like that, and these guys do collaborations with Alice Cooper.
Oh.
And they do like an Alice Cooper milk, which is like an orange milk, and yeah, it's like great. Every quarter, there's some new collaboration with milk.
Okay.
Which is, I'm like, who does a collab with milk? But no, it's pretty cool because it draws attention to them on shelf, and you get like these crazy colored milks, and they do the glass bottle, and so it's a pretty fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you've done with the design. When I compare it to the previous one, super clear, solves a lot of the issues that are at retail. And I think as a young designer, you don't necessarily see what these challenges are, right? Like the logo's down the bottom third and it's going to get covered by the shelf. Most times you don't even go to the store to see the product on shelf. You're just like, oh yeah, I want to move things around.
Yeah.
And once you've produced it, then you're like, oh crap, it doesn't work.
Right.
So going to the stores, something you got to do, talking to the retailers, getting their input. I've created packaging for Target. I think the most insight I get is when I share it with the buyers at Target. And they're like, oh, hey, we're gonna do this as an end cap. So the full front of this is gonna be visible, or we're gonna put this on shelf. This will be hidden. It's gonna be sitting next to this product. We'd really like you to do these changes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times designers feel they don't want somebody poking around in their creative, but your retailers are really your partner because they want to sell your product and they know how to sell your product. So take that input, listen to them, involve them, work through the process with them. I think there are things that I'm hearing from what you kind of went through in this redesign and why it looks so great.
Well, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the feedback that informed the brief was from retailers. They were like, this is getting shelved wrong. Like this is, confusing people. Like the retailers know their customers better than you do, unless you work for a very large company that has a lot of money for research. So, especially as a small brand, like you're served well by listening to them because they know. Burps and farts.